What's happening, people? Back with another reaction, back with some more live Eurythmics as we return to the live 1983 to 1989 compilation released in 1993. Big thank you once again to Phil. And we're going to hear a live performance of Here Comes the Rain Again, a song of theirs I will always love. It is one of a handful of tunes I knew going into the Eurythmics deep dive. I think it's the opening tune on Touch, if I remember correctly. But yeah, it's a classic. I think it expresses what made the Eurythmics so special, like maybe especially in their early phase, meaning there's these electronic sonics, but they still have a lot of emotion in them. Annie's voice is beautiful, and there's a lot of atmosphere to the tune. And yes, ultimately I've come to a newfound appreciation for the song, even if I have known it for many, many years, because people explained to me the anecdote behind where the song came from. I think they were in a hotel room, and I think it was Annie who said that line, and they sort of fleshed that out into a set of lyrics. And again, I think it's just classic, and yet also as good today as it was when it came out more than 40 years ago. So let's give it a listen. This is a live performance of Here Comes the Rain Again by the Eurythmics, and it's included on this 1983 to 1989 compilation of live tracks. Definitely different. it's like, number one, it feels more different than the studio version, than any track we've heard on this live compilation previously. And in one respect, I'm surprised by that, and yet I shouldn't be, in that, number one, they clearly have dynamic live performances. Number two, the fact that they would embellish a classic track and make it so much more. I feel like maybe, I should expect that, even if, like, in the details, I would not know in advance what to expect. But yeah, that's absolutely brilliant and somehow goes beyond the album track, which again I hold up as just an absolute classic, one of my favorites in their catalog. And okay, like, where do I start? Okay, first of all, it starts more. It felt like the tempo was a bit slower, and it had more of like this down tempo gravity to it. And even when it like breaks into the main part of the tune, it still felt like it was a bit slower and more like weighty. And then, even beyond that, it felt like a more natural instrument, more like the guitar stood out a lot more in the intro. And even though that like cycling, fluttering, flickering synth melody was there from the beginning, it just hit differently than in the album version, and it was less overtly electronic sounding. So yeah, it felt like more natural instrument based, and the tempo felt a bit different, and the gravity felt different. And then as it really gets into the meat of the tune, it felt like more soulful. It felt more like a soul rock version of the tune. And then suddenly in comes my favorite instrument, the swanky saxophone, and that gives it a totally different feel than the album version. And again, there's still electronic sounds there. It's still very much identifiably the tune that you would know if you'd only heard the album version, but it's doing more than that. And again, the saxophone and the guitar giving it layers that the more like keyboard drum machine oriented album track just doesn't have. And then Annie's vocals, in one way, hitting the lines as you would know it if you knew the album tune, but the more the track goes along, the more she's like emphasizing, she's hitting the lines harder and kind of like articulating the melody in a slightly different way. So like even the vocals had a different feel, and then in a couple moments like there's this more soulful extension. And so again, the like soul sound, the rock sound, the like saxophone, like brass swagger of the tune just gave it this denser and fuller feel. So yeah, like on every level it's different. And then as it gets into the latter half of the tune, it feels like the tempo is picking up and picking up. And by the end of the tune, it felt like it was actually a little bit faster than the album track. So it was like dynamic in terms of the rhythm and the tempo over the course of the tune. And yeah, like there were just this like intensity in the vocals, in the sonics, in the arrangement that like I just found myself marveling at what I was hearing. So yeah, and then there were like two sections, one like, I don't know, like a third of the way in, and one like near the end, where it kind of stripped down and became this very staggered, syncopated rhythm. So yeah, like again, the song I knew, but presented in a way that I just was not prepared for. So yeah, that's gotta be my favorite live performance so far on this compilation. And yeah, they took an amazing tune and somehow made it like, levels higher than that. So yeah, just stunning, incredible, fantastic. Shout out to both Annie and Dave and to all the other musicians who may be there with them in these live performances, and in this one in particular, incredible. Like I'll just sit here and like mumble like superlative phrases for the next few minutes, but I'll spare you that. Remarkable. Let me know what you think. Luca and I will see you next time. Peace.